Mondays, am I right? Especially when it's snowing outside in April. Nevertheless, good morning, Cardinals fans. I'm Tara Wellman, and I suppose we should probably talk about last night. If momentum is the next day's starter, then the Cardinals should have been golden, with Luke Weaver headed to the mound after a successful showing of pitching and hitting in Saturday's game. Developing story, sources say momentum is not just the next day's pitcher. It's also not contagious. After a dazzling 6 innings of work by Luke Weaver and just one runner on board in the 7th, it was all downhill from there. The 4-1 loss in the series finale against the Diamondbacks pushed the Cardinals to 4-5 on the year, which, to be fair, is better than 3-9, so at least there's that. But this game was not without its points of interest. For example, in the 2nd inning, after a continuation of Saturday's weird strike zone, we found out Torey Lovullo didn't really like Yadier Molina, or at least his pitch framing. And we found out that Yadier Molina doesn't really like the colorful terminology used to describe Yadier Molina's pitch framing. If you missed it, there were words, the kind you can't air on television. There was a little shoving. Yadier Molina stayed in the game. Torey Lovullo did not, much to the chagrin of Diamondbacks fans, as well as Cubs and Brewers fans, because obviously any impending consequences for yesterday's kerfuffle are still TBD. However, let's be real. It's not a secret that Yadier Molina has maybe a bit of a short fuse. However, the fact that he stayed in the game after what clearly was an explosion of emotion leads me to believe that the home plate umpire felt similarly to Yadier Molina after what Lovullo said, in that the reaction was inevitable. Let's be clear, Lovullo came to the plate to argue balls and strikes, and then proceeded to insult, in no unclear terms, the catcher, who doesn't call balls and strikes, for doing the job that a catcher is supposed to do in trying to generate as many favorable calls as possible for his pitcher. That's pitch framing, and it's an actual skill that all Major League Baseball catchers try to perfect. And like I said, it appears, both in the moment and in their defense of not tossing Yadier Molina after the game, that the umpiring crew felt Molina's reaction was to some extent justifiable. Now, does Yadi have a flair for the dramatic? Yes. But it is entirely unprofessional to go about that conversation that may or may not have been justified in happening, but to do it in the way that Lovullo did, and that seems to be the sticking point for this whole ordeal. Also, want to give a shout out, kudos to Daniel Descalso for being the first guy to get to Yadi, probably because he knew someone was gonna get hurt. Daniel Descalso, everybody. Good friend, good teammate, good opponent. What a guy. But after those early fireworks, the game itself kind of fizzled to a disappointing end. After systematically dismantling Zach Greinke the day before, the Cardinals' offense only managed 3 hits against Taijuan Walker, and the sometimes lethal 1-5 did nothing. Good news from Colton's corner, though. He had 2 hits on the day, including the only Cardinals RBI. Maybe he won't be banished to the bench for the series opener against the Brewers. Right-handed pitcher notwithstanding, I'm not holding my breath. The other good news, sort of, from yesterday, is that Mike Myers is in fact alive and well. Sort of. The bad news is, he still can't seem to defeat those Major League demons. Now, whether that's because he hadn't pitched in 8 days or why he hadn't pitched in 8 days, as Daniel Shoptaw and I discussed last night on Gateway to Baseball Heaven, shameless self-promotion, I don't know. But the reality is, yesterday was just the emphasizing again of the fact that Mike Matheny insists on an 8-man bullpen and then cannot seem to figure out how to utilize it correctly. Yesterday was just the 2nd time Myers has pitched, and the first time since opening day. Meanwhile, Matt Bowman came into the game for the 6th time. in 9 games. I wanted to believe this season that giving Mike Matheny an 8-man bullpen of all legitimate viable options to pitch in just about any given scenario, plus the assistance of Mike Maddox as more of a pitching coordinator type, would lead to some better bullpen decisions. But here we are just one day after I praised the way they had managed the bullpen the previous couple of games, talking again about how this 8-man pen doesn't seem to be defensible, not because it exists, but because it's used improperly every time. Now, don't get me wrong, there were other factors in yesterday's loss. Leon has to stop making his one bad pitch right down the middle to a pretty good major league hitter. Jose Martinez has to be able to handle that pickoff throw from Tyler Lyons and not drop the ball. That changes everything in the way that inning develops. And scoring 1 run is still a really bad way to try to win games. The manager can't control any of those things because those are about execution. And execution is always 100% on the players on the field. But having an 8-man bullpen, rather than an extra bench guy, and then utilizing it in the most confusing and indefensible way possible is 100% on the manager. Now, I'm not going to resort to calling him names because I don't appreciate the way he's doing his job, mostly because I really wouldn't be very good at a fight. But I do think that he is causing me some gray hairs, and that is completely unacceptable. Completely.